Welcome back to Beyond the Spectrum. This is Dreem sharing our family's journey with autism with you, and this is episode 16. So today we're talking about two sides of the same coin as it refers to certain behaviors, because there are behaviors that can seem like they'd be negative, but then the flip side of it is a positive. And there are some that seem positive, but the flip side might be a negative that sneaks up on you. So I'm going to give several examples of what I mean. And of course, this is something that is shared by everyone. This isn't something that is just displayed in the neurodivergent. However, it could be a little bit more pronounced in that group. So we've already quickly in the past talked about the way that he's able to mimic and do it so well. The beautiful part of that is that he can mimic just the nuances of conversation and the lilt and the tones in conversation. However, he can do it so well that sometimes he can fool you into thinking that he understands something that he may not. So there's two sides of that coin. As far as rules are concerned, he is a rule follower, and everything was very black and white, very literal. And that's such a wonderful thing, because you know that if you give a directive that he understands, he is going to execute it perfectly, and you won't have to worry if he's being deceptive or lying. It's just, nope, we don't lie. Yes, we obey. And that was just that. And I mean, most of the time. Obviously, he's a child, he's not a robot, so there were times that he, of course, would make mistakes and he would try to get out of it, but it was so rare. However, the flip side of that is sometimes you need to be flexible, and when he couldn't understand how you would judge how far to be flexible, to him it was just black and white. It was just yes and no. There was no gray area, so that was a little bit tricky to try to get him to understand that society isn't always that way, and sometimes people say things when they really don't mean that exactly. And that was just one of the things that as he grew, he started to understand a little bit more. Along those lines, I think this one was probably like a comedic one, one that I thought, I'm gonna break him of this, and this is gonna be so good for him in the future, that ended up turning around and biting me. Because I looked back and thought, should I have, trained him out of this, or should I have allowed this behavior to continue? I think it was a good decision that we made. However, like I said, it did bite us, and I'll explain it now. Lunchtime, or schedules in general, but lunchtime in particular for this example, this little story here. Micah was very hyper-focused on the fact that lunchtime came at noon. That was lunchtime. That was the time that we were supposed to sit at the table and be putting food into our mouth at 12 o'clock. That's it. And when it was 12:01, I would hear about it. It's 12:01. It's lunchtime. Is it even lunchtime anymore? We're late. Oh, we missed lunch. And it was just such a obsession of his. And of course, having a baby under him and having children that I was watching at our house for friends and stuff like that, it wasn't always possible to have lunch on the table at 12 o'clock exactly. And so I remember kind of breaking him of that and saying to him, we still can have lunch at 12:30, at 12:45. Sometimes these things don't matter. It's just the meal comes around that time, but it's not so strict that it comes right at 12 or else we missed it. And so, of course, we worked with him on this over time. And then, I don't know, as his brain started to develop, it was like he just ran with that schedules weren't so important and that he didn't need to stick to them. And I think to this day, he still is not really super aware of how fast time actually goes. He says 5 minutes often when it's just not. It's so much more time has passed. And so I kind of always look back to lunchtime and think, should I have just made lunch at 12 o'clock every day? Of course, I'm joking, because I would rather him err on this side of flexibility, because society tends to be more flexible, than to have him be so strict that he couldn't kind of break free from that. So I'm glad that we did it, but it's kind of a funny story. So I guess it's just a little lesson to just be conscious of the two sides of the coin, because as you're extinguishing certain behaviors, you might be also extinguishing the partner of that behavior that is actually a benefit to you. So just try to be a little bit more conscientious there of what both sides of that behavior is that you're actually trying to adjust. Though I'm very happy to report that in the last 2 years since he's graduated and has a full-time job, there were times when he definitely had to wade through those waters a little bit and figure out just how to go back to a little bit more of that hyper focus, because obviously you don't want to be late for work, and those are different things than meal times. Those are different schedules that need to be kept. But now I think he has a really nice handle on the things that need to be strict and the things that could be a little bit more flexible. And I will just add this one little caveat in here because I think this is awesome. Sometimes you just get those sweet deals that because this child is autistic and this is the way his mind works, you happen to get one of those blessings that other moms miss out on. And so I'll share this, not to brag, but just to say, yes, here was another really cool thing that happened. Potty training and thumb sucking. We allowed him to suck his thumb until he was 3 years old. We never used the pacifier because he sucked his thumbs, and so did our daughter, and it seemed so much easier than to not have to worry about a pacifier all the time. Now, when my daughter hit 3, we would tell her, okay, it's time to stop, sucking your thumb. Well, she told us years later, she still sucked her thumb. Whenever we would turn our back, she'd pop her thumb into her mouth, and whenever we'd turn around, she'd quick pull it back out again, which was pretty funny because we didn't know all that time. We thought, oh, well, she did it too. She did exactly what Micah did. But Micah was different. He literally turned 3, and on his 3rd birthday, my mom is actually the one that suggested this. She said to me, well, how long is he going to suck his thumb? And I said, I don't know. And she said, I think she actually said it to him. I think she said, Micah, you're 3 years old now. That's too old to be sucking your thumb. You're a big boy. And he literally popped that thumb out of his mouth and never sucked it again. That was one of those rules, right? It was just black and white. Oh, if I want to be a big boy, then I need to not suck my thumb. And that was it. There was no months and months of trying to get him to stop and all the stuff. It was just done. And potty training was literally just as simple. He was wearing diapers, and I think he was potty trained around, I want to say, between 12 and 18 months. I'm not sure exactly when, somewhere between then, probably closer to about 15 months. And we literally just said to him, you don't need to have diapers anymore. You can go potty on the potty chair. And this is where big boys, same kind of mentality. This is where big boys go. If you want to be a big boy, then you sit on the potty chair. And that was that. I mean, potty training was done in about 3 days. And there were some accidents, of course, because, those things happen, but it was night and day from our other 2. Although I will say this, Sydney is very competitive. So once she realized Mike is doing something that she's not doing, it didn't take long for her to jump on board either. And so she was pretty easy as well. So that was kind of nice because they were so close in age and they were such good friends. She was always wanting to do what Micah was doing, whatever it was. So, except for sucking her thumb. She was still sucking that thumb. Anyway, so that's just a lighthearted one for today. 2 sides of the coin. Always be careful when you're trying to extinguish a behavior. Be very aware of what's on the other side of that coin. See you tomorrow.